November 30th. This poem's in 4 parts. Part 1. One thing that bothers me is the continuous disintegration of perceptual strategies. For instance, I have already lost my train of thought, but the loose caboose of reason is not yet frozen to the tracks. So I proceed, like a mongoose whose one fear is indifference, like a pre-adolescent tasting absolute desire, like an idiot sticking his writing pencil up his arse, like some people in a recent dream who knew quite well they were only imaginary. Part 2. I asked myself the ancient questions. Where were you? Who were you with? I wish I had got my dad on video, but will I get my mom? The questions which arise when we are alive and well perhaps really are not important. I doubt that I, for one, much give a shit. But the awards, Mom, Jesus Christ, just the thought of the awards. Part 3. Fully assembled and road ready, ready to order, we deliver our pure vision of long-lasting faith to the pimples of our good side, which are screaming for mercy, for a plot not embroidered with death. I know that pain is real, but I'm not sure that it gets worse year by year, or for that matter was ever much different, although of course it was when the fear was too intense to become paranoid. I wished I could remember everything, all at once, for 1 second every day, without fearing for my heart, because after a while I wouldn't have one. Part 4. Let us consider for half a minute a car whose windshield is frozen over. I know that I have consumed nitrous oxide, entered the vehicle in swimming trunks, then wandered aimlessly for what seemed days until just the right green light went on. Now this. The process of waking up screaming also sometimes occurs during our conscious hours, which makes us feel like the famous atheist who was all dressed up at his own funeral but has no place to go. That's why we must socialize more discreetly, becoming so sensitive at last to danger signs that we neglect to spot our own. I ramble, but there is a moral here somewhere, one so obvious to everyone I start to cry. December 1. Apprehension stands guard over our world like the top part of an exclamation point at the end of a contorted sentence, which can't get closer or become more distant to or from its period, never is allowed to touch the bride, but must look forever forward and sideways, bordered on the right by chaos and on the left by you-know-what. December 2nd. This is a prose piece. Back sitting in the chair, he remembers that they'd left the elevator. They'd left the elevator, which was burning, then burnt out. A board of lights, which was the control system. A control system which needed to be replaced. That's what the word was. Once they had left the elevator. But how could it be when the replacement was upstairs, and to get upstairs, they needed to use the elevator? Well, the answer was that that was taken care of. The part somehow had not flamed completely out. There somehow was a solution. Not only that, but the supplies in the supply store, including food, wine, and all the necessities, were going to be provided as a bonus, so the people would not have to worry, at least not for that one day. Why they were free then he didn't know, but he did know it would be fixed. This was particularly calming since the air was getting thinner. Hadn't really begun to get hard to breathe, but there was a feeling of thinness, like being on the first slope of a small mountain. But everything was going to be all right. Everything would be all right. In the large room, something was going to happen. He was going to happen. Then he realized that he was walking to make something happen, and that he was awake, and that he was walking out of the bedroom. He was walking now, not in his sleep, but had begun before, waking out of the dream, the slow grinding agony of what was not quite a nightmare. He had gotten up and had begun to walk, and now he was still walking, almost just now remembering, out of the panic. The elevator in his mind had been fixed, but he was walking as though still asleep, had been walking in his sleep. He heard a noise, His nerves jumped just a little bit, but consciously now, he realized that what had made him nervous was a possibility, that it was a person in the apartment below, knocking on the floor, because the creaking of the floor as he walked on it had caused some alarm or even consternation. But he realized, waking up even more now, that it was a knocking in the wall, a knocking that always occurred at around dawn, when the heating system came on. The knock the walls would knock, just a little bit, just for a few minutes as the heat came on. He wondered, should I write this down? As he sat in the chair in the living room, in the semi-darkness, lighting his first cigarette of the day. December 3rd. Recognition will be accorded when all else is gone. That way only fragrance will remain. December 4th. Imagine a bronze spider web. Snakes swim outward from its center. At the edges they turn into dust, which is a shame but keeps them honest. December 5th. Lousy little pebble, your opaque fantasies recall me to the world. December 7th. Trying not to force inspiration, I exercise with caution, play music, read a little, and listen to myself. When the voices become desperate, alone and lost without any real friends, then and only then will I begin to write. December 8th. This is in 4 parts, too. Part 1. I can still almost remember the last painting I did still asleep, but it's sure nice being up for the day. First there was a meowing noise, then soft luminiferous light, accompanied by breathing sounds, gently reminded me of my bad back. Part 2. Something was intensely alive when I did at last get up. I wasn't quite awake, but it sure as hell was. Part 3. A ping inside a pang can cause a world of pain when it means that your appendix bursts. I hate you so much, blank face with blood clots for eyes. I want to see your brain explode like popcorn. Part 4. The question is no longer what is he on, but what would he do best on? Or should he be allowed to not take any medication? I wish I could just say, you know best, but I know better. December 13th. Yes, today is Friday. I don't think she knows it yet. The important thing for a poet is finding his or her own voice. After that, you can turn a mature product out. Critics sometimes will go back to the early groping, shifting voices period when searching for clues to the miracle of this type of awakening.
The Tommy gun. Upon about the hour of 10 a.m., Tommy is walking on a cliff, thinking about his brother's Anaxoria. Because his body is so small, his courage seems unlimited. The rain cements him inside of the gluey steps of his Adidas. He strips off his clothes, takes a shit, and wipes it off with skunk cabbage, which smells a little bit like sewer pipes. How and why he got here is just conjecture that was engendered in the mind, and shuffling a deck of cards assumes an omen to be dealt. His face looks as blank as a snail peering sideways at the river. Hell breaks loose. 300 feet of rotting clay that could almost have been a laundry chute collapses, and he ruts, but falls down, walking backwards, miraculously upon wet grass. If his sister had come with him, they might have both floated out into the tide. But Tommy's alone. No one is with him. From time to time, a carp would swim by and rise to the surface. But then descend back into the deeps of the water and never even bump him. It is high noon in the Black Forest. Tommy's mother folds a napkin beside a bowl of Campbell's chicken soup. Elsewhere, Tommy's father has just cut his finger and it is bleeding. He thinks he would like to suck out the blood, but since he is riding in a bus, he just lets it drip out onto the floor. If only all of it would flow freely, he thinks, momentarily, a pool might form, and everybody in the bus could drown. The newspapers would even write it up. This man knows that every thought must end in almost nothingness. Mother reluctantly is eating the Campbell soup and is putting the napkins back into the drawer. She looks out of the window into the darkening afternoon.
My flashlight is attacked by bats. Through night bright air, bats swarmed and moving out of sight were vanishing miraculously now, till none were left, not trace remained, except I realized that I had dropped my flashlight, which was bobbing rapidly downstream, and I was almost blind, far from our cabin, lost. Now is the time, I thought, to sing and drive these fiends away. I sang of their malevolent red eyes and how I'd smashed their nasty so-called wings with a clenched fist. I threatened life for any bat seen flying past the moon. Lorna, you are a plum tree moving towards the mountains. Liberated, you are a jade flute, used only in the highest Mayan ceremonies. I guess you are about the only American I've met whose tastes are truly French. You could be a jukebox. I could be a dime. Following the snail's path. In my dream of a film, Victor Mature, who plays Centurion, is quoting Homer. He is riding on a silver pony toward the moon. His manager, the placid nightmare figure, is staring quietly into the rain. They're statuesque, unique upon their horses, glad to be alive, to defend the forgotten idea. Know that the silence of all history is camping out upon the borders, waiting for another Cadmus to arrive and sow the dragon's teeth. A pause. Then a swarthy hand, descended from the clouds, appears and pokes a finger out beyond the painted screen. This is the same finger that was later to create the burning bush, the fall of Rome and Israel. But now it fades back out of sight. Not even God disturbs the reveries of these two soldiers leaving home. Miss Universe. Pink and blue hydrangea buds, imbued, enfolded by the ocean, walk and shimmer. Weirded out, her labia caressed themselves. 3 of the judges notice. 2 give extra points. The Outer Space Prayer. And if I truly am, as I have been accused, insane, then I shall organize the mad so that their souls complete an actual world that conforms to my desires. Prose Poem. Scientists working for Adolf Hitler succeeded somehow in transforming 500 pineal glands into one enormous freak who to this day lives on above the Alps, where he lies bleeding in 1,000 languages. Recently, carried by the southern wind, globs of his spit dropped onto Texas lawns whose owners swore the, quote, blobs were still growing hours later. Isaac Asimov, scientific expert called in by the government, was heard on TV to make this remark. Oh my God, oh my God. For nestling within the phlegm was something enigmatic. The labor pool. We have an engineer who's a Spanish-American boy. We've got an up-and-coming hustler ready for the ultimate caress, and one substantially maturing poet who is certain that his father was misunderstood and likes to talk about it. Poem for my mother. 25 years later, and I'm still awake, can't sleep, not even trying to turn night into day, just reaching out beyond my bed for matches and a cigarette and pencil and paper to imagine you, immense but transitory, pulling back the blankets and tucking me in. And then I burnt my fingers. When you smile in your sleep, thin fingers seem to wander through the room like crawfish walking on the bottom of the deepest stream in all of Christendom. August poem. There I was, just simply there, an amateur pond for your more professional frogs to balance on, and still I was performing well, beyond all comprehension, even when the wind blew hard as you were far above me, and the new moon jumped like an hallucination, swam there through myself like an hallucination. And the new moon put some shades on, put on gold shades and walked away. The old days. White pebbles would arrive out of the sky. Then as science was prepared for voyage, a lustrous rock of faces, 7 doves encircled it. Oh, the sky was blue and my shoes fit. Folks lapped up wisdom from the shadows that got carried back from time to time. Less is more. Normally, I would require an extra large container for all my cost-effective prohibitions and restraints, stuff which eliminates much besmirching of what originally might have been some pretty good intentions. Shrewdness requires bypassing most of the known systems in favor of my own performance, of course. The little machine gun that got left out underneath the laurel bushes melted long ago. Most of what has been achieved has wizened out of recognition. Some, and by no means the most deluded, simply have accepted the radical randomness of a wildcat campaign. Many more bygones be bygones, jet set, tacky, and insincere horrendous vibes still drift back wistful to this outfit. So we have no choice but to continue snuffing them. Absolutely, there are going to be risks. Certainly a lot of cutbacks must be made. Begging your indulgence, the only thing I really do need is an apparatus that's just large enough for me to get all of the equipment that's been scattered back inside. A casual affair. Before I started publishing, sometimes whole packets of my poems disappeared. But the thought that a thief was reading me was almost reassuring. Now my works are mostly read by people who are just in the right place at the right time. Letter from home. I would rashly associate my own subjectivity with commonly accepted perception. But over and over, time after time, all my friends have reassured me that my paranoias are a source of humor for whatever remains of their minds. Today I won't go out. Just sit here all alone to brood, observing how my shoes devour my feet. My shirt is crumpled by my pants, and even my underwear got soiled unspeakably by contact. The little light, which plaintively shivers in the lonely yard, calls out to me, "Stop playing that piano." School days, recess, 10 years away, tired, so go to sleep, Martin. Don't forget they see you, bastards, every one. The man in the woodcut. He has a room that rains glass eyes. He has a womb which catches light, an apple and an acorn. All he needs now is a window, full of trees and fog, the way it was inside the house of night, before the silver screen utterly shattered what was left of the horizon. The outing. Featherless weird birds had started diving upwind of our camp, making an already darky sky more bloody yet. Pa said he was going out to shoot one, but they simply bit his fool head off. Lasting hate. When I was a lad, I'd roam sewers in search of animals which I would kill and try to sell for money. I hated them then, and I still feel nothing but complete contempt. Fishing Clear Lake. Most fishermen are casting at the two inlets to the lake, not in the middle, where at one point the bottom can be occasionally perceived 190 feet below. The older fish perhaps live there, can see a lure a mile away. So I feel naked and decide to fish within some shade just off the gut. 20 years have passed since I fished here, happily young. Trees still stand up among the gathering debris of the sand-bottom lake floor. Numinous and funereal now, these trees should have pierced up through the surface, where my fingers are distorted on the face of the shadowy water. Only they were just dead wood that I once thought was growing still, and for an instant I imagined leaves as my animated bait dropped slowly down. Disease. Night can be an easy time for overtime and agonizing. The workers have struggled so long their faces crack whenever they try smiling. One just hangs up his glove and starts to limp away. Looking back, he does recall the magnetic presence of a prismatic ray that got transformed into a vision, which lifted him away from dreams and right into a nightmare. Now, another load is being wheeled out from inside of the swamp. The crew wearily dredges up clues to contagion. Louis Pasteur keeps injecting himself. Schweitzer plays Bach too emotionally. One more mosquito gets away to send his message out through 50 generations. Oh, my God. Can't find anything. Almost anything. An atmospheric abnormality, a fog-smeared greasy sky, just one bare influential cry can activate the hockey puck of poetry. Dear reader, I am grateful for your attention. When you leave, I stay here.